He makes a video going off on his dad saying, you say that you're 100% pro-life. That's bullshit. What about that woman that you paid back in 2009 to get an abortion?
Get in, loser. We're learning about politics. Hey, cuties. Welcome to Your Political Bestie. I'm your host, Ashley Higginbotham, and I'm here to take the confusion out of politics and government. Each week, I'll break down the latest news and explain all things politics, from local to international, making all that complicated stuff super relatable and easy to understand. Because, let's be real, it's important to know what's happening in our world, right? So, grab your coffee or Chardonnay, I won't tell, and let's dive into politics like the smart queens we are.
Oh my God, hi. Welcome to another episode of Your Political Bestie. I'm your host, Ashley Higginbotham. Welcome back. Welcome back. Lovely to see you all again. Just kidding. I can't see your faces. This week, I thought that I would talk about, I wanted to make this more of like an index episode, something you can like put in your pocket. Because I realized what good is me talking and explaining politics to y'all if you don't even know what these terms mean. So I figured I would take the time and create this little index episode. That's what I'm calling it. I'm going to call it an index episode because, like I said, it's kind of like when you go to the back of like a book and it's like, oh, the index of all the words you didn't know what the hell means. That's what this episode is here for. Without further ado, why don't we just jump into it? A is for absentee voting. Absentee voting is somebody who can't be there on election day. So like if you're in college, if you're going to be out of the country, something's preventing you from being able to be there on election day. So this is where you can like send in a ballot. Send in your ballot early. I don't know what's going on there. B is for ballot initiative. This is where some states allow this, where it's a procedure in which citizens can propose a change in law. And then if you get enough signatures, then it can actually go somewhere. B, also, some states are going to have more than one because I just think it's really important that some have more than one. So B is also for bellwether state. These are states that historically have picked the president of the United States. So what I mean by that is like Ohio is a good example. So Ohio, for the past multiple presidential elections, has picked the correct president. So usually like, oh, well, if Ohio says Trump is going to win, then Trump's going to win. If Ohio says that Kamala's going to win, then Kamala's going to win. Is basically what that means. There's also like a really weird backstory to why they chose bellwether state. It has to do with like sheep and the bell that they would wear around their neck to like find the whole flock. The origin of words is honestly kind of freaky to me. There's a good one coming up here soon. Can't wait for that one. B is also for bundlers. And no, this is not how you can save money on your cable, internet, and phone bill. That's not what this is. I'm not Geico. Sorry. Wait, no, Geico's auto insurance. I mean, Progressive. Oh my God. Okay. Bundlers are people and or organizations that raise buku bucks. Shit ton of money. I'm talking so much money to support a campaign. This is different from PACs. This is it's just people that get together and basically bundle a whole bunch of money to help a finance or a campaign. Now, they are also part of the reason, not all the reason, but part of the reason why we have campaign finance laws. Because you can't let people be getting too crazy. People be going crazy with money in campaigns. We can't allow that. C is for caucus. Now, caucus is a term you've probably heard along with the word primary. That's because they're kind of interchangeable. Some states do a caucus, some states do a primary. A caucus is basically just a meeting of party members that vote on shit and decide on things. One of them is, a really big one, is who they are going to nominate to be like their presidential candidate. So like I said, a majority of states do primaries, but like Iowa does a caucus. They have a really big one. The reason why everybody always talks about the Iowa caucus is because they're the first one to happen. D is for duopoly. Duopoly is, it kind of explains in and of itself, duo, two. It's basically another word for a two-party system, but it's kind of more, not like insulting, maybe kind of. Like George Washington would hate the duopoly that our two-party system has turned into. Okay, let's use that sentence. Because in that sentence, it's kind of like we're leaving out third parties, or we're leaving out other people. And that's what that means. Duopoly is just focused on just two sides. It doesn't include any other sides. So that's why George Washington would hate that, because George Washington was a hater of political parties. Don't even get me started on that, though. He'd be so pissed. He'd be so pissed if he was still alive today. R.I.P. E is for election fraud, aka voter fraud. So election fraud is basically just anything that has to do with the election that's fraudulent. So impersonating somebody and going to vote, having false registration, like your address is wrong when you go and vote. Because then that puts you, like, if you're like in a different district, you should not be allowed to vote in a district you do not live in. F is for FEC, aka Federal Election Committee. What I was just talking about earlier with bundlers, and they're some of the reason why we have campaign finance laws. That's where the FEC comes in. The FEC was created to oversee and create campaign finance laws. Now, if you remember Watergate, the FEC was born out of Watergate in Operation Deep Throat. Not talking about your mother, talking about Watergate. Now, G is for gubernatorial. That's a fun one. Imagine like growing up wanting to run. Okay, well, let me explain to you what gubernatorial is. So a president has their presidential race. A mayor has their mayoral race. A congressman or woman has their congressional race. What does a governor have, you may ask? A gubernatorial race. Who the fuck came up? I mean, I know the origin behind the word, but like, who the fuck came up with gubernatorial? You probably didn't heard it because news journalists and the media hate to use that term because it's so long and it's an ugly word. So usually when the news talks about governor races, they don't say gubernatorial, they say race for governor. Oh, so-and-so's race for governor. They don't say so-and-so's, like they'll say so-and-so's mayoral race, so-and-so's presidential race, presidential run. They say so-and-so's race for governor, or the race for governor is heating up. They always say that. They don't ever use gubernatorial because I don't like to use that word. It's a weird word. It's awkward. But G is also for gerrymandering. Gerrymandering is really fucked up, guys. It is basically, so the census every 10 years, they don't just do like a population thing. Well, they do. They focus on the population. That's their main job. It's every 10 years. And they can also every 10 years, your state government can redraw your district lines. And this is something that politicians get real excited for, because they can redraw your district line to make it an advantage to them, to help them get reelected. Like if they're looking at the map of your state, right? And let's say that they are a Democrat. Okay, there's a bunch of Democrats that live in this area and in this area. And then there's just a tiny few little bit of Republicans there. We're going to circle that and call that one district. So basically, gerrymandering is a way to increase a party's advantage. So they are going to redraw their lines where each district it usually will vote majority blue if they are Democrat. And then they'll just sprinkle in a few little Republican like areas there. So gerrymandering also has like a really racist start and past. I almost want to do a whole episode on this. Maybe I will, because it's really messed up. G is also for G7 and G20. Oh my God, 2 at one time. G7 and G20. These are 2 different meetings. You might hear like G7 summit, G20 summit. These are meetings of the 20 biggest economies. Let's go economies. The 20 biggest economies in the world. G7 is the 7 biggest economies in the world. They basically just get together every once in a while and shoot the shit. H is for hanging Chad. And no, we're not talking about what we're going to do to your ex-boyfriend later. Shh, we don't need to publicize that. Hanging Chad is a political term. It comes out of the 2000 presidential election. Now, hanging Chad is probably the newest term on my list. I just learned what a hanging Chad was a couple months ago when I was watching somebody that I care about very much. They do a live show like almost every day. And I was watching one of his shows and they talk about, and he brings up the hanging Chad. And I'm like, what the fuck's a hanging Chad? Like, what? So I looked it up. And it's crazy. Basically, back in 2000 during the presidential election, Florida's votes were really, really close. So they had to do a recount. And when they did the recount, they went back, and this is 2000, so there was a lot of paper ballots, right? And when you use like a hole punch to a piece of paper and you like hole punch it out, that little circle piece of paper, the useless paper that comes out after you hole punch something, that's called a Chad. I know a Chad, so it's just funny that that's the definition for this. Because he's not worthless if you're watching this. Anyway, it is just a piece of paper that it's the circle that comes out. And so a hanging Chad is when you hole punch, but it doesn't fully come out and fall out. It's stuck on the paper. It's hanging on. It's a hanging Chad. And this was a problem in the 2000 election in Florida because when they would go back and recount the votes, they would find hanging Chads, which means that their vote wasn't counted. That's messed up. We can't be having hanging Chads around. H is also for hopper. Not of the homie kind, of the political kind. A hopper is basically just a way that politicians and legislators can give out their ideas for laws that they might want to pass. It's basically the best way to propose a law. There are physical boxes sometimes, and there are electronic boxes sometimes. Either way, it's a way for legislators to propose any possible laws that they might want to pass or try to get passed. I is for incumbent. Incumbent is the person that is already in office. So, as of November 14th, 2024, President Joe Biden is the incumbent. He is currently in office. Whoever's currently in office, that's the term you use, incumbent. Got it? J is for joint session. This is not what you do in the school parking lot before you go into class. This is not what you do out back in between shifts of your restaurant job. This is when both members of your bicameral government get together. So Congress and Senate get together. That's a joint session. Not as fun as the other kind I mentioned. And then we have K, which is kangaroo court, which doesn't always apply, or which isn't just about politics. You can really just use this in any term that you want to use it in. But kangaroo court is basically just saying that people do what they want, how they want, with no regard to law. because it just bounces back and forth. They just do whatever they want. L is for lobbyists. Now, lobbyists are people who lobby for a job. All right, that's it. Next question. Just kidding. A lobbyist is somebody that is hired by an organization, a company, to try and influence politicians to vote one way or the other. So let's say there is a pew-pew related bill that is coming up. You are probably going to have lobbyists from the NRA, the big pew-pew people who love them, come in and try and influence the politicians. And then you're probably going to have somebody from a nonprofit, let's say, that raises money for victims of school shootings, going to come and they're going to try and influence the politicians to vote one way. So these are just people that come in and they're like, hey, you should probably vote this way on this bill because this is why. That's what lobbyists do. M is for midterm elections. Sexy. This happens 2 years into a presidential election. It is 2024. We just had a 2024 presidential election, so the midterm elections are 2026. A lot of people don't think midterm elections are that important when they are, because you elect Congress, Senate, governors, not all, but majority. That's what happens. And these are the people that actually affect your day-to-day life. I'm going to get off my soapbox, but you should be voting for midterm elections. N is for nonpartisan. I fear this could go without being said, but it just means not biased. That's all. O is for October surprise. October surprise is anything that happens within the month of October that could change the outcome of an election. Okay, so, and this isn't like a legitimate term. This is just something that conspiracy theorists and people in the past have put together. They're like, oh my God, almost every election, there's something crazy that happens a month before the election in October that can change the outcome of an election. So, for example, in 2016, on October 7th, you had the Hillary Clinton emails released. That could have been, and Trump won that year, and Clinton was in the lead, and then those emails were released. So people think that that's an October surprise. My favorite my favorite October surprise would have to be in 2022 on October 3rd. So Herschel Walker was this former football player. He was running for Senate in Georgia, I think. Well, his son, Christian Walker, who, if you live on TikTok, you know who he is. He's a gay right-wing influencer, okay? Herschel Walker, who was running as a Republican, came out and was like, yeah, I'm 100% pro-life. Babies' lives matter. Blah, blah, blah. I'm 100% pro-life. I guess Christian was sick of his shit because Christian comes out, makes a video, and just goes off on my dad, on my dad, goes off on his dad. He makes a video going off on his dad saying, you say that you're 100% pro-life. That's bullshit. What about that woman that you paid back in 2009 to get an abortion? I mean, and obviously, what, how do you save face? What do you do? I mean, Herschel responded and was like, I love my son no matter what he says, blah, 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 whatever. But that could also be construed as an October surprise because God damn, that is some tea. Imagine your son just throwing you to the political wolves. Crazy. Insane. O is also for open primary. People who like third parties love open primaries. So, regarding a primary election happens before a general election, right? So the general election is you can just pick Republican or Democrat, usually. And then there's independent, there's green, there's libertarian. You pick who you want to win for the president, okay? Primaries are, majority of them are closed primaries, which means that if you have to be either a registered Republican or a registered Democrat. You go in and you vote for who you want to run for president and other offices as well under the Republican ticket. So let's say there's 2 nominees for Republican for president and 2 Democrats and like 3 for your Senate Republicans. You are going to go in, when you go in to vote, they're going to say, do you want a Republican or a Democrat ticket? You're going to say, I want a Republican ticket, for example. You go in, there's two nominees for Republican for president. You pick one. Whoever wins that primary then goes on to the general election. That's what a closed primary is. But an open primary is a way that people can vote without registering as a party. You don't have to register as a party to vote in an open primary. Got it? P is for PAC, aka Political Action Committee. This is an organization that is formed to raise money for a presidential candidate, someone that's running for office. Now these are like big donors. So an example for this would be American Values 2024. This was a PAC that was created to help former independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. run for president. I think they gave him upwards of like $34 million to help with his campaign. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy the amount of money. But yes, that is a PAC. Q is for quorum. This is the number of legislators that have to be in their seats, asses in seats, for business to begin. So that's 218 for the House, 51 for the Senate. If there aren't that many people in each one, business can't happen. You're fucked. R is for writer. And the writer is the bane of my existence, and it's about to be the bane of your existence once you learn what it is, because it's the reason why shit doesn't get passed in our government. A writer is an irrelevant piece of legislation that is snuck into a bill that seems like a great bill that both sides of the aisle would want to pass. Right? It seems great. But it's usually, it's something that should be something that both sides want to pass. So like, let's say that the Democrats wrote this bill to, I don't know, lower gas taxes. I don't know. I'm just pulling this out of my ass. Lower gas taxes. And the Republicans are like, oh, great. Like, I think we should lower gas taxes. Sure. Both sides want to lower gas taxes. Great. So they send the bill through and everybody reads it. And Republicans are like, wait. What is this? What is this right here? And let's just say that they included something that says gender confirming surgery is also going to be allowed. That's something that's typically a left-leaning issue that right-leaning people don't necessarily agree with historically. Republicans are going to be like, wait a minute, what is this? We didn't sign up for this. We didn't sign up for this. What is this? You included this little piece at the bottom of the bill. We're not passing this through. We don't want this. So half the time when you are watching the news and you're like, oh, this is a great bill. This is going to be passed easily, and it doesn't pass. It's usually because somebody on the left or the right snuck in something to fulfill their own agenda. And that's why shit doesn't get passed. Anyway, S is for split ticket voting. There weren't that many words for S, so I picked split ticket voting. This is where you jump parties down your voting ticket, right? So let's say that you voted for a Republican president, but you voted Democrat for everybody else, or you go back and forth. Or let's say for your congressperson in this district, let's do the Democrat. For president, I'm going to do the Republican. For Senate, I'm going to do the Democrat. Like, it's just split ticket voting is just saying that you didn't vote for one party straight down your ticket. T is for third party. This is a candidate that does not identify as Republican or Democrat. This also includes somebody that identifies under the Green Party or the Libertarian Party. So Jill Stein in this most recent election was under the Green Party. Chase Oliver was under the Libertarian Party. And then also you had somebody who wasn't under any party, independent, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., ran for a little bit. So this is just anybody that is not a Republican or a Democrat. U is for unicameral. Unicameral, one chamber, which means their Congress and their Senate are literally like one. They're one. You know what state does that? Nebraska. Nebraska, you don't do the winner take all in the presidential election for the Electoral College, and you have one chamber of legislators. What the hell is going on up there in Nebraska? Just kidding. I love you. I love all my Nebraskans. All 0 of you that I know. Just kidding. I know one. I know one Nebraskan. V is for veto. Now, veto is where the president can reject anything. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I fear you all already know what veto is. So something goes, a bill happens, goes through Congress. Congress likes it. Say, cool, Senate, take it off our hands. Senate takes it, reads through it, says, ooh, cool, Mr. or Mrs. President, take it off our hands. Mr. or Mrs. President grabs it, goes, ooh, not cool, veto, I don't want it. Goodbye. That's how veto works. W is for wedge issue. So let's look at a wedge, right? A wedge is something that wedges in between, right? This is, a wedge issue is an issue that divides what is normally a united party. Here's an example. Historically, African American males vote Democrat. Historically, they normally do. However, historically, African American males are also the most conservative regarding gay marriage. So even though most African American males historically vote Democrat, and gay marriage is a Democrat issue that they go for, Democrat African Americans are kind of like, we don't really like gay marriage. Historically, I'm not saying everybody, historically. That is a wedge issue. It's an issue that divides people that are normally united. And then we have X, Y, and Z. There's nothing. There's nothing for X, Y, or Z. Nothing important. Nothing that I feel that y'all as my audience really needed to know. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I gotta go. If you know what that means, if you know what that's from, I love you. Time for questions of the week. There's only one this week, which is fine. Totally fine. He asked, how are key cabinet members appointed? Because I mentioned this a little bit last week. You have probably started to see in the news, oh, Donald Trump picks so-and-so as their secretary of so-and-so. Donald Trump picks so-and-so as their secretary of so-and-so. It's funny that I was asked this question because that is what next week's episode is going to be about. I'm going to go through all of the cabinet members, what they do, and who Trump has picked for each one, because he should, by this time next week, have everybody picked out. But if not, we're still going to do the episode. I'm still going to explain to you what each cabinet position does. And we'll go from there. So, how are key cabinet members appointed? First things first, the president-elect picks somebody. They nominate somebody. He says, okay. Like, for example, he chose Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as his Secretary of Health and Human Services. So he says, I want RFK to be my Secretary of Health and Human Services. So then people are like, okay, cool. Then they go through what's called a vetting process, where they just do like a background check. You have to like disclose your finances, shit like that. They want to he wants to make sure that he really wants him as his secretary for HHS. Then it is announced, right? Like what is going on right now. Oh, Donald Trump has announced so-and-so as their secretary of so-and-so. That's what happens after that. Then you have your Senate confirmation hearings. And this is where you meet in front of your relevant Senate committee. For example, the Secretary of State has to meet in front of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. And then after they do that, then the committee votes. If the committee votes and they pass them, then they pass on to a full Senate vote where everybody in the Senate votes. You only have to win by a simple majority. So in the simple majority in Senate, that is 51 votes. And then they're sworn in. And that's that. That is that. Over this next week, we are going to probably be getting all of Trump's cabinet member picks. And I will be here next week to help you figure out what each cabinet does, what they do, who is nominated, and just because Trump says that he's nominated these people doesn't mean that they will get in. The Senate has to confirm all of them. So that is it for this episode of Your Political Bestie. If you like what I had to say, comment, let me know. If you didn't like what I had to say, comment and let me know. See you next week. Bye!
Thanks for hanging out with me on this week's episode of Your Political Bestie. If you love diving into the world of politics with me, subscribe and join the conversation on social media, and let's keep this group chat going. Remember, we're in this together, so stay curious, stay fabulous, and I'll catch y'all next week.